She thought she was getting into her Uber on a rainy night, but when she opened the door, she stepped straight into a billionaire's world. She mistook the billionaire's car for an Uber and ended up driving straight into his heart. Welcome to Billionaire Stories Real. If you enjoy deeply emotional stories of redemption and true love, please subscribe and hit the bell. Now, let's dive into the untold story that changed everything. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain was merciless that night in Manhattan. Puddles shimmered under neon signs as Lila Torres rushed out of the small bakery where she worked the evening shift. Her thin jacket clung to her shoulders, soaked through, and the umbrella she had borrowed from a coworker had already given up against the wind. She just wanted to get home, away from the cold, away from another day of smiling through exhaustion. Her phone buzzed. "Your Uber has arrived." She spotted a sleek black car waiting by the curb. Without hesitation, she pulled open the back door and slid inside, shivering. "Thank you so much," she breathed, wiping raindrops from her face. "You have no idea what a day I've had." A man's deep voice cut through the sound of the rain. "I am not your driver." She froze. The man behind the wheel was not wearing a cap or a uniform. He was in a charcoal suit, his wristwatch glinting faintly under the dashboard light. His eyes cool, focused met hers in the rearview mirror. "Oh my God, I am so sorry." She reached for the handle, mortified, but a flash of lightning cracked outside. The rain thickened into sheets. "Wait," he said quietly. "It is dangerous out there. You can stay until it slows down." Lila hesitated, heart pounding. "You really do not have to." "I know," he replied, turning his gaze back to the windshield. "But I am not the kind of man who lets someone drown in the rain." The silence stretched between them, heavy yet oddly calm. The car smelled faintly of cedar and leather. She noticed his hands steady on the steering wheel, strong but tense, like someone used to control. She managed a small laugh. "You sound more like a gentleman than most drivers I have met." A corner of his mouth twitched, the first hint of a smile. "That is because I am not one." The wipers hummed in rhythm as she glanced at the sleek console, the shining logo on the wheel. "This car, is this a Bentley?" He nodded once. "It was supposed to take me away from a meeting I could not stand. Now it seems to have picked up something much more unexpected." Her cheeks warmed. "I swear I am not usually this clumsy. My day just was longer than it should have been." He finished softly. She blinked. Surprised, he understood. He reached into the back seat and handed her a gray cashmere coat. "You are shivering." She hesitated. "This looks expensive." "It is," he said, "and right now it is also warm." Their eyes met in the mirror again, his steady, hers uncertain. "Thank you," she murmured, pulling it around her shoulders. The fabric was impossibly soft, smelling faintly of rain and something she could not name, maybe power, maybe peace. He did not ask where she lived, and she did not explain why she looked so tired. The city outside blurred into streaks of gold and gray. Inside that quiet car, for the first time that night, she felt seen. When the storm finally eased, he asked, "Where should I drop you?" She hesitated, fumbling with her phone. East, Mochumwe Haith, near Riverside." He nodded, steering smoothly through the wet streets. "That is not close." "I know," she said, embarrassed. "I will pay you back for the ride." A brief silence, then his voice low, certain. "Do not worry about that." She smiled faintly, unaware that her life had just collided with Grant Whitaker, the billionaire she would one day love for real. The next morning, the storm has passed, but Manhattan still glistens with rain. The gray sky hangs low above the city as Lila Torres steps off the crowded subway, clutching a paper envelope to her chest. Inside it are late rent notices, a medical bill for her mother's treatments, and the pink slip from the bakery that let her go last night. Her boss said the store was cutting hours. What he really meant was that her mistakes cost him too many customers. Lila pulls the cashmere coat tighter around her shoulders. It still carries his scent cedar and something clean, like rain on stone. She should return it, but the card she found in the pocket has distracted her completely. Grant Whitaker, CEO of Whitaker Industries. She has never seen a business card so heavy, so deliberate, printed in silver ink on matte black. The man whose car she accidentally entered is not just rich. He is the kind of rich who does not need to say his name twice. Her stomach tightens. She remembers his calm tone, his silence that carried more comfort than words. And now, she knows exactly who he is. At a small cafe on East Bamouibonth, she sits with a cup of coffee she cannot afford and searches his company on her cracked phone screen. Articles flood in corporate mergers, charity galas, headlines calling him the reluctant king of New York. Every image shows the same composed expression she saw in that rearview mirror. Power, control, distance. She whispers under her breath. You drive yourself, you hand out coats, but the whole city belongs to you. Her phone buzzes again, a job alert she has been waiting for. Whitaker Industries is hiring a temporary personal assistant. The posting is for a short-term contract, starting immediately. Her hands tremble slightly. Maybe this is fate, or maybe just one more risk. She thinks of her mother's medication, the bills piling up, the landlord's voice telling her she is already 2 weeks late. By noon, she stands in front of the towering glass building of Whitaker Industries. The revolving doors gleam like mirrors, reflecting a version of herself she barely recognizes. Hair pulled back neatly, the borrowed coat pressed clean, determination hiding her fear. Inside, the lobby smells of polished wood and espresso. Every step she takes echoes off the marble floor. Name? The receptionist asks. Lila Torres. I am here for the assistant position. The woman nods, scanning the list. Take the elevator to the 27th floor. Someone will meet you there. Lila exhales and steps inside the elevator. The mirrored walls make her feel smaller with every passing floor. She rehearses what to say, but words crumble each time she imagines his face. What if he remembers her? What if he thinks she followed him on purpose? When the doors open, she is greeted by a tall woman with sharp eyes and a clipboard. Mr. Whitaker is running behind. You will wait in the conference room. Her tone is polite, but detached, the kind of courtesy that costs nothing. Lila nods, taking a seat at the long glass table. Through the window, the city stretches endlessly gray, alive, and intimidating. She presses her palms together, trying to calm the heartbeat in her throat. Then, the door opens. The sound of polished shoes crosses the room. She looks up and there he is. Grant Whitaker stands by the doorway, tailored suit immaculate, the faintest surprise flickering across his face. The same eyes that watched her through the rearview mirror now study her in daylight. You, he says quietly, almost to himself. She rises too quickly. Mr. Whitaker, I about the coat. He lifts a hand. You are here for the assistant role? Yes, sir. I saw the posting online. For a long moment, he says nothing. His gaze moves from her face to the coat still draped around her shoulders. Then, almost imperceptibly, his expression softens. You are persistent. Most people would have just sold that coat. She shakes her head. It did not belong to me. I wanted to return it properly. A quiet beat. Then he gestures toward the seat across from him. Sit down, Miss Torres. She obeys, heart hammering. I have an unusual proposal, he begins. Not just a temporary assistant role. I need someone who can accompany me to several public events this week. The press is watching every move I make, and certain people expect me to appear. Attached. His voice stays even, professional, but his words make her pulse spike. I do not understand, she says carefully. You want me to pretend to be your partner, he finishes. Just until the negotiations conclude. It is business, not romance. The room feels smaller now, air heavier. She should say no, but the thought of her mother's hospital bill flashes in her mind. She swallows hard. And what happens when the contract ends? Grant studies her for a moment longer. Then we walk away, cleanly. You get paid well for your time, and I get to keep the press off my back. Silence lingers between them again, but this time it is charged with something new: curiosity, maybe fear, maybe fate. Lila meets his gaze and nods slowly. Then I guess we have a deal. Grant's lips curve, almost into a smile. You are braver than most people I know. She exhales, realizing she has just stepped into something far bigger than a job. The rain outside has stopped, but somehow, the storm is only beginning. The following morning, Lila Torres stands in front of the mirror in the guest dressing suite of Whitaker Industries, staring at her reflection. The stylist has pinned her hair in a smooth knot. slipped her into an elegant black dress, and fastened a silver bracelet around her wrist. She hardly recognizes the woman in the mirror. The calluses on her hands are hidden, her nerves disguised under lipstick and perfume. "Remember," the stylist says gently, "you are not pretending to be rich. You are pretending to belong." Lila nods, but inside, she feels like an imposter. The borrowed grace of the outfit cannot erase the reality that only yesterday she could barely pay for coffee. When she steps out of the suite, Grant Whitaker is waiting by the elevator. He looks different in daylight, still perfectly composed, but less untouchable. For a second, his eyes soften when he sees her. "You clean up well, Miss Torres." She blushes slightly. "You mean I look less like someone who mistakes a Bentley for an Uber?" A quiet chuckle escapes him, surprising them both. Something like that. The elevator ride is silent except for the low hum of the cables. Lila steals a glance at him, noticing how he keeps adjusting his cufflinks, a small tell of discomfort that does not match his reputation for control. When the doors open, they step into the marble lobby, where a sleek black car waits at the curb. As the driver opens the door, Grant turns to her. "From this moment forward, everything we say and do in public matters. There are no second takes, Miss Torres." "I understand," she says, though her voice trembles slightly. He nods. "Good. Tonight's event is the Winter Gala for the City Heritage Fund. You will be introduced as my partner. Just follow my lead." She takes a deep breath. "Yes, Mr. Whitaker." He glances at her again, his tone quieter. "You can call me Grant, at least when no one else is listening." The ballroom glows under chandeliers, the air alive with the hum of laughter and champagne glasses. Everywhere Lila looks, she sees wealth pearls, polished shoes, people who have never had to count the hours of overtime to survive. Grant moves among them easily, shaking hands, nodding to investors, exchanging short phrases that sound like secrets. She stays beside him, the way he instructed, smiling when he glances at her, pretending she understands this world. Grant. A tall woman in a red gown approaches, her voice smooth as silk. "You did not tell me you had company tonight." Lila's stomach knots. The woman's eyes slide over her like a scanner. "This is Lila Torres," Grant says calmly. "She is very dear to me." The words stun her. Her lips part, but she says nothing. The woman's eyebrows rise, curiosity flashing before she masks it with a smile. "How lovely," she replies, before turning away. When they are alone again, Lila whispers, "Was that necessary?" Grant tilts his head slightly. "In this world, perception is everything. You wanted to help your mother. I need stability in the media. Tonight, we both get what we came for." She looks at him, unsure whether to feel grateful or insulted. "And what happens if I make a mistake?" "Then you will learn from it," he says simply. "That is all anyone can do." A waiter passes with a tray of champagne. She reaches for a glass, but her hands tremble. He steadies it for her, his touch brief, professional, but the jolt that runs through her is not. Hours pass like slow waves. The evening is a blur of introductions, polite laughter, and cameras flashing. Yet between every handshake and every glance, Lila feels Grant's quiet watchfulness. He never leaves her side, shielding her from questions that dig too deep. As the night ends, they step outside to the cold terrace. The city stretches below them, lights flickering like distant stars. "You handled yourself well," he says, sliding his hands into his pockets. "Barely," she admits, smiling faintly. "I almost dropped that champagne glass on the mayor. That would have been entertaining," he replies, and for a fleeting moment she hears warmth in his voice, something human beneath the armor. She looks at him, wind brushing her hair against her cheek. "Why me, Grant? You could have chosen anyone to play this role." His gaze lingers on her. "Because you were not pretending when you got in that car. You were real. I needed that more than I realized." Her breath catches, the air suddenly heavier. He looks away first, clearing his throat. "The contract begins tomorrow. My assistant will send you the details. 3 events, 1 press interview, and a gala next week. We will both keep our distance outside of work. Agreed?" She nods slowly. "Agreed." He opens the car door for her, his expression unreadable again. As she slides inside, the coat still around her shoulders, She wonders how a simple mistake could have led her here sitting beside a man whose world is nothing like hers, bound by a deal that already feels too personal to be business. When the car pulls away, neither of them speaks. But in the silence, something unspoken begins to take root, something that no contract can define. The next few days move in a blur of lights, cameras, and carefully measured words. Every morning, Lila Torres wakes before sunrise to study event notes and practice introductions in the mirror. Every evening, she rides beside Grant Whitaker, learning the rhythm of a world she still feels she does not belong to. Her first lesson is posture. Keep your shoulders back, Grant tells her, as they walk into a charity luncheon. People read confidence before they hear your name. Her second lesson is silence. You do not need to fill every pause, he says later in the car. Sometimes quiet is the loudest answer. But no matter how much she practices, she still trips on small things, calling his investor Mr. Parker instead of Sir Andrew, waving too enthusiastically to the photographers, forgetting which glass is for water. At first, Grant sighs with quiet irritation, but over time his sighs turn into a low chuckle, the kind that slips out before he can stop it. Do you ever stop apologizing? He asks one night after a dinner event. Only when I stop making mistakes, she replies, smiling faintly. He shakes his head. Do not. Those mistakes are the only honest things in a room full of rehearsed perfection. Their driver glances at them in the rearview mirror, pretending not to notice the way the billionaire's voice softens when he speaks to her. The next day, Grant's assistant, a woman named Elena, arrives at Lila's small rented apartment to deliver new event clothes. She lays the dresses on the bed, tailored gowns, silk heels, jewelry cases that look like miniature treasure chests. Lila runs her fingers along the fabric. These must cost more than my rent. Elena smiles faintly. Do not think of them as yours. Think of them as armor. That evening, Grant waits outside her building, leaning against his car. For once, he is not on his phone. He is watching the clouds, lost in thought. When Lila steps out, his eyes flicker with surprise. The silver gown fits her perfectly, its soft shimmer catching the last traces of daylight. For a brief moment, his voice catches. You look professional, Lila laughs. That is one way to say it. He clears his throat, gesturing toward the car. Let us go. We are already running late. The gala is held at the Metropolitan Museum, a maze of marble and gold where every conversation sounds rehearsed. Lila stays close to Grant as they greet a stream of guests, their smiles synchronized like a practiced dance. Yet amid the formality, she feels the growing awareness between them, his hand brushing hers as he guides her through the crowd. The way his gaze lingers half a second too long. During a pause between introductions, he leans closer. Are you holding up? I am trying, she admits quietly. I keep thinking someone will realize I do not belong here. You belong because you are here, he replies. No one can argue with presence. Before she can respond, a flash goes off camera shutters, voices calling his name. Mr. Whitaker, look this way. He places a steady hand at her back, turning them toward the lights. The flash blinds her for a second, but when she hears the shutter click, she realizes his hand has not moved. Later that night, after the crowd thins and the orchestra fades, they find a quiet moment on the museum balcony. The city below glows like a sea of embers. Lila leans against the marble railing, the wind tugging gently at her hair. Do you ever get tired of all this? She asks. Grant glances at her. All what? The pretending, the smiling, the constant control. He takes a slow breath. Control is what keeps everything from falling apart. But does it keep you from feeling anything real? She presses. He looks at her for a long moment, as if no one has ever dared to ask him that before. Maybe, he admits quietly. The silence that follows is not awkward. It is fragile like glass that could break if either of them breathes too hard. Finally, he says, tomorrow's schedule includes a board dinner. You will meet my father's old partners. They will expect perfection. Lila smiles softly. Then I will try not to embarrass you. He turns toward her, his expression unreadable. You could never embarrass me, Lila. For a second, she forgets they are bound by a contract. The air between them feels too alive, too unguarded. She looks away first, but the warmth in her chest lingers. As they drive back through the sleeping city, Grant watches her reflection in the window. wide. She has no idea how much her presence has already changed the rhythm of his days. He tells himself it is still just business, but deep down, he knows that line is already blurring. Outside, the street lights pass in slow motion, soft, steady, like a heartbeat he is only beginning to recognize as his own. By the end of the week, the performance feels almost real. Cameras follow Grant Whitaker and Lila Torres. Wherever they go, charity lunches, business forums, late-night events where her smile must never fade. The tabloids have started calling her the mysterious woman beside New York's most private billionaire. She reads the headlines with disbelief while sipping coffee in the company lounge, half amused, half terrified. Grant steps in behind her. "You should not read those," he says quietly. She sets the magazine down. "They are calling me your good luck charm. I am not sure if that is an insult or a compliment." He smiles faintly. "It depends who you ask." Their eyes meet for a brief second, just long enough for the room to feel smaller. Then he looks away, sliding a file onto the table. "We have one more event tonight, the Whitaker Foundation Gala. It will be crowded, and the press will be waiting. If you can handle this, the contract will be officially complete." Lila exhales. "The final act." "Exactly," he says. "After tonight, you will not have to pretend anymore." She tells herself that should make her happy. Instead, her stomach twists. The ballroom at the Grand Meridian Hotel glitters like a dream. Dozens of chandeliers scatter light across gold walls and mirrored floors. The crowd hums with laughter, the air scented with champagne and money. Lila clutches her silver clutch tightly as Grant greets one executive after another. His charm seems effortless, but she can sense the tension behind his polite smiles. "Are you all right?" she whispers when they step aside for a moment. He nods but does not answer. His eyes keep drifting toward a group of men near the stage board members who helped build his father's empire. Lila notices how his jaw tightens every time one of them laughs. A woman in a navy gown approaches, microphone in hand. "Mr. Whitaker, would you mind saying a few words for our guests?" Grant glances at Lila, his composure flickering for a second. "Of course," he says, taking the microphone. The room quiets as he steps onto the stage. Lila watches him from below, pride and worry twisting together in her chest. "Good evening," he begins. "Tonight is not just about charity. It is about legacy, about remembering where we came from and deciding who we want to be next." His voice is steady, commanding, but when his eyes find her in the crowd, something changes. "I was reminded recently that no amount of success matters if you cannot share it with someone who makes you feel human again." A ripple moves through the audience, soft murmurs, whispers, the kind of curiosity that can turn into headlines within minutes. Lila's breath catches. She knows he is not supposed to go off script. When the speech ends, applause fills the room, polite but electric. As Grant steps down, flashes from cameras explode like fireworks. Reporters close in instantly, their questions sharp and eager. "Mr. Whitaker, who were you referring to in your speech? Is this the woman rumored to be your fiancée? Miss Torres, how long have you two been together?" Grant's security moves forward, but the questions keep coming. Lila freezes, light burning her eyes. Then, instinct takes over. She forces a calm smile. "The truth is, sometimes you meet someone by accident, and that accident teaches you who you really are." The crowd stills. Cameras zoom closer. Her voice shakes, but she keeps going. "I never expected to be part of this world. But what I found here is not what I thought. It is not power or money. It is kindness, the kind that hides under 1,000 layers of fear." The room is silent for a moment. Then applause breaks out, not loud, but genuine. Grant turns toward her, eyes unreadable, as if seeing her for the first time. When the reporters are ushered away, he leans close and whispers, "You did not have to save me out there." She smiles softly. "I was saving myself, too." He studies her face, the curve of her smile, the steadiness in her eyes. "You keep doing that," he murmurs, saying things I do not know how to answer. Then, "Do not answer," she replies. "Just mean it." He laughs quietly, but there is something else in his gaze now, something unguarded, almost fragile. As the night draws to a close, the orchestra plays its final song. Grant offers his hand. "Dance with me, Miss Torres, one last time, before the contract ends." She hesitates, then places her hand in his. The music swells around them, slow and soft. For a moment, the world outside the ballroom disappears. The cameras, the whispers, the deal between them all fade into nothing but the rhythm of the song and the quiet realization that pretending has never felt this real. When the final note fades, he does not let go immediately. Neither does she. And as they walk off the floor, she knows that whatever happens next, something between them has already changed forever. The ballroom lights fade, but Lila Torres cannot sleep that night. Her phone buzzes with news alerts, headlines quoting her words, pictures of her dancing with Grant Whitaker, speculation about a love story that never existed. Or maybe it does. She lies awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing she does not know where the act ends and her feelings begin. When morning comes, the city feels quieter, as if holding its breath. She makes her way to Whitaker Tower for what should be a routine meeting, but the moment she steps into the executive floor, she senses something different. The assistants whisper. Security stands closer to Grant's office. Elena avoids eye contact as she passes by. Is something wrong? Lila asks softly. Elena clears her throat. The board meeting did not go well. Mr. Whitaker is in one of his moods. Before Lila can reply, the door to his office swings open. Grant stands there, sleeves rolled, tie loosened, his expression colder than she has ever seen. Miss Torres, inside. Her pulse jumps. She follows him in, the glass door closing. Behind her with a soft click. He stands by the window, back to her, the city skyline reflecting in the glass. What happened? She asks carefully. He turns, eyes sharp. Someone leaked details of our arrangement to the press. She blinks, stunned. Our contract? Who would? Does it matter? His tone slices through her question. They are already calling it a publicity stunt. The board thinks I used you to distract the media. Investors want me to issue a statement by noon. Lila's throat tightens. And what are you going to tell them? I will fix it, he says. That is what I always do. By lying? She asks, stepping closer. His gaze hardens. By protecting what matters. She shakes her head. You mean your reputation. That reputation keeps thousands of people employed, he snaps. I cannot let one mistake ruin it. She flinches at the word, mistake. Is that what this was to you? For a long moment, he says nothing. The air between them feels heavy, thick with everything. Neither of them has dared to say. Finally, he exhales. You should not have spoken at the gala. Her chest tightens. I was trying to help you. I did not ask for help. The silence that follows cuts deeper than any argument. She looks at him, this man who gave her warmth when the world was cold, and sees how fear still rules every corner of his heart. I thought you were different, she whispers. But you are just like the people you pretend to despise. You hide behind control because you are terrified to be seen. He turns away, jaw clenched, unable to meet her eyes. This conversation is over. Lila nods slowly, swallowing the ache in her throat. Then so is the contract. She removes the silver bracelet he gave her for appearances and places it on his desk. The gesture is small, but the sound it makes when it hits the glass echoes through the room like a final word. She walks toward the door, but his voice stops her. Lila. She hesitates, not turning around. You were never supposed to mean anything. He says quietly. That is what makes this so difficult. Her eyes sting. She forces a bitter smile he cannot see. Then maybe you should stop trying to control what you feel. The door closes behind her, leaving him alone with the city he thought he owned. Grant sinks into his chair, running a hand through his hair. The truth presses against his chest like a weight he cannot escape. The press may think this scandal is about business, but for the first time, his crisis is entirely personal. That night, the coat he lent her sits folded on his desk. He reaches for it, fingers tracing the seam she had repaired by hand. For a man who never believed in fate, he suddenly finds himself wondering if fate is all that is left. And somewhere across the city, Lila walks alone through the rain, without an umbrella this time, letting it fall freely against her face. The city lights blur as she whispers to herself. He will never change, yet her heart refuses to believe it. The deepest secrets are about to change everything. Subscribe now to catch the dramatic twist that is coming in the next chapter. The following week unravels like a slow storm. Lila Torres leaves her phone off, avoiding the flood of messages from journalists who still want her side of the story. The city feels different now, colder, sharper. Every corner reminds her of Grant Whitaker, of things she said that she cannot take back. She returns to the small bakery where she once worked, hoping routine will numb the ache. But even the smell of warm bread cannot fill the silence he left behind. Across town, Grant's world spins faster. The board demands damage control. His father's old partners threaten to pull their investments. The publicist drafts apologies, but none of the words sound like him. Each night, he stares at the coat on his desk, the one Lila had repaired. It has become the only thing in his life that feels honest. At midnight, he drives through the city streets, restless. He stops near the old flower shop she once mentioned, the one her mother ran before illness forced them to close it. The storefront is dark now, windows covered in dust, yet a small sign still hangs above the door, Future Bloom. He stands there for a long time, remembering the way Lila spoke about hope as if it were something she could grow from broken soil. Elena finds him the next morning in his office, exhausted. "You need to face the press, Grant. If you keep hiding, they will bury you." He looks up, eyes hollow. "Let them. They are already writing their version of me. You could write your own," she says softly. Her words linger after she leaves. He opens a drawer and pulls out the contract. Lila signed the agreement that started it all. His name, her signature, the clean lines of legal promises that never accounted for the human ones. He runs his thumb along the edge, then reaches for a lighter. The flame catches quickly, paper curling into ash. For the first time, the room feels lighter. That evening, he calls a press conference, ignoring every warning from his team. Cameras flash as he steps to the podium. "There has been speculation about my personal life," he begins, voice steady but raw. "For once, the rumors are not entirely wrong. I made a mistake thinking I could keep my heart out of business." Gasps ripple through the room. "The woman you have seen beside me is not a scandal," he continues. "She is the reason I remembered what truth sounds like." He does not answer questions. He simply leaves the microphones behind and walks into the rain. For the first time in his life, he has no plan, only the certainty that he has to find her. At that same moment, Lila is closing the bakery when a headline on the television catches her eye. "Billionaire admits truth behind his contract love." She freezes, the broom slipping from her hand. For the first time in days, her heart beats with something new, hope, fragile but alive. The news spreads across the city before dawn. Every major outlet replays Grant Whitaker's confession, his voice steady, his eyes unguarded. For once, the world sees him not as the untouchable billionaire, but as a man standing in the wreckage of his own mistakes. In a small apartment above the bakery, Lila Torres sits on the edge of her bed, listening to his words on the television. Each sentence feels like a heartbeat echoing through the static. She presses her hand to her chest, torn between disbelief and something far more dangerous, hope. She whispers to herself, why would he do that? But deep down, she already knows. He finally stopped protecting his image and started protecting the truth. Outside, rain begins to fall again, soft and cleansing. Without overthinking, she pulls on her coat, the same one he once draped over her shoulders, and steps into the street. At Whitaker Tower, chaos reigns. Reporters crowd the lobby, shouting questions, flashing cameras. Grant ignores them all, striding past with an expression that looks more like peace than defeat. He has already given up the one thing he valued most, control. When he reaches his office, Elena stands by the window, holding an envelope. "This came for you this morning," she says. He opens it and finds a folded piece of stationery. Inside is a pressed flower delicate, slightly faded, and a handwritten note in looping ink. The shop is open again, not the flower shop, but the place where something can grow. L.T. Grant stares at the note, a small smile forming. He grabs his coat and heads for the door. The drive to Harlem feels endless. When he arrives, the rain has turned into a drizzle, and the old sign above the shop glows faintly under the streetlight, Future Bloom. Inside, the shelves are half empty but alive. Again, buckets of fresh tulips line the counter, and behind them, Lila turns at the sound of the bell. For a long second, neither of them speaks. The air hums with everything that was left unsaid. "I saw your speech," she says finally. "I meant every word," he replies. His voice is softer than she remembers. I cannot change the past, but I can start telling the truth from here. Lila studies him, eyes glistening. And what truth is that? That I fell in love pretending not to, he says simply. She looks down, biting her lip. You burned the contract, did you not? He nods. There is nothing left to sign but this whatever we are. The words hang between them like fragile glass. Then she steps forward, placing a single white tulip in his hand. Then start with this, something that grows when you stop trying to control it. He smiles, a quiet exhale of relief and wonder. For the first time, no cameras, no crowd, no contract, just the sound of rain outside and the hum of two hearts finding their rhythm again. In the window reflection, the city glows behind them, and the sign Future Bloom flickers brighter, as if the world itself is learning to breathe again. A month passes, and spring begins to bloom across New York City. The chill of winter has faded, replaced by sunlight that spills through the windows of Future Bloom. The once empty shop now hums with life again, flowers stacked in colorful rows, the scent of lilies and peonies filling the air. Behind the counter, Lila Torres ties a ribbon around a bouquet, her hand steady, her heart lighter than it has been in years. The doorbell rings, and she looks up to see Grant Whitaker standing there, not in a suit, not surrounded by bodyguards, but in rolled sleeves and a smile that feels entirely real. He carries a small box, and when he sets it on the counter, she notices what is inside the same contract they once signed, carefully folded and tied with a red ribbon. I thought you burned it, she says softly. I did, he replies, but I made a copy not to remind us of a deal, but to remember where everything began. She opens the box and finds something else inside a small silver key. What is this? The key to the space next door, he says. It is a second shop, for expansion. Your name will be on the lease this time. Our partnership, no signatures, no conditions. Just trust. Her eyes shimmer with tears. You really never give up control, do you? He smiles. Only when I am giving it to the right person. The two share a quiet laugh, the kind that feels like exhaling years of fear. Outside, people pause to admire the window display two tulips, one white and one red, standing side by side in a single vase. Later that afternoon, as the rain begins to fall lightly again, they step outside together. The city feels gentler, slower, almost like it is giving them permission to begin again. Lila turns to him, brushing a strand of hair from her face. You know, when I got into your car that night, I thought it was a mistake. He looks at her, voice low and certain. Maybe it was, but sometimes the wrong turn takes you exactly where you belong. He takes her hand, and together they walk down the street, their reflections blending in the wet pavement. The light above the shop glows softly behind them. Future Bloom, a name that finally feels like a promise kept. As they disappear into the city, the camera lingers on the sign, the rain, and the coat still hanging by the door, a symbol of kindness, fate, and the love that grew from something neither of them planned. Thank you for joining us for this cinematic adventure. If you want more untold stories of billionaire love and redemption, please subscribe and choose your next true heart journey on your screen now.